So today we are going to talk about uvea or uveal body. So uvea is basically consists of three parts. Broadly it is divided into three parts. So first one is the iris, second one is the ciliary body, and the last one is the choroid. So we will talk one by one with these three parts, as uvea is broadly classified into three parts: iris, ciliary body and choroid. So first of all, let me make a diagram. So this is the lateral view of the particularly the ciliary body and the iris, but first of all we will discuss about the iris and then we will talk about the further things. Uvea is one of the vascular coat of the eyeball, or vascular part of the eyeball, where all the structures including the iris, ciliary body and choroid are filled up with the blood vessels. So first of all we are going to talk about iris here. So when we are talking about iris, so iris is this part is called iris, which is having a diaphragm which is very similar to in the below surface also, and it is just a sectional view but it is all around 360. So first of all when we talked about iris, so iris is consists of different layers. First layer is the anterior layer. First layer is the anterior layer of the iris. This is the posterior part of the iris, or posterior layer we can say, and the middle one is the iris stroma. This one is the iris stroma. Now broadly the iris is consists of anterior part, iris stroma and posterior part. So let us discuss one by one. So when we are talking about the anterior part of the iris, so the anterior part of the iris is having a epithelium which is consists of a very packed epithelium in the anterior layer. Iris stroma is in between the posterior and the anterior layer, which consists of melanocytes, fibroblast and mast cell. So the melanocyte, fibroblast and the mast cell, which consist in the iris stroma, these are present in the posterior part of the iris, just connected with the iris stroma. So this fibroblast or mast cell or melanocytes will having a different type of functions. For example, if we take melanocytes, melanocyte is responsible for color pigmentation. For example, if a person is having a more melanocyte, pigmentation is more. If the melanocyte is less in the iris, then the pigmentation is less. So we have seen a different type of people who are having a different color of iris. For example, blue iris, brown iris, dark brown iris. So depending upon the number of melanocytes which is present in the iris, it will give you the color complexity. Now the second part is the fibroblast. Fibroblast or mast cell actually helps here to fight against an antibody. Fight against an antibody. For example, any kind of foreign body will enter in the anterior segment, so that particular anterior segment is completely filled with the aqueous humor, which will drain out through the trabecular. In case if this macrophages or fibroblast or the mast cell do not have a capability to engulf them, they will directly block the path of conventional pathway of aqueous outflow here in the iridocorneal angle. So what actually the function of fibroblast here is to engulf is to engulf the foreign bodies which are present in the anterior chamber, because the anterior chamber does not have any kind of blood vessels here. So as you know, somewhere here in the suspensory ligament there is a lens. So all the structure which is present here does not have any kind of blood flow or blood vessels. So the iris itself contains the microblast and the fibroblast and the that mast cells that will engulf all the foreign parts or the foreign material or any kind of antigen antibody reaction cells, dead cells, and engulf them to clear the path of conventional pathway here, because there is any hindrance in the conventional pathway will lead to raise in the intraocular pressure. So this is the major function. Now if we see the microscopic structure, here we have seen the lateral view of the iris. Now when we see the microscopic structure of the iris, then iris is consists of two zones. So I am just making a diagram of a microscopic structure of the iris, where the microscopic structure of iris is segmented into two zones. First one, this zone is known as ciliary zone. This zone is known as ciliary zone because after that it is connected with the ciliary body. So that is why this zone is known as ciliary zone. And here somewhere iris roots are present. In this part of the ciliary body ends, where the ciliary body terminates, here the iris roots are present. That is why this part is known as ciliary zone, and this lower section is known as pupillary zone because it is connected with the pupil here. So this segment which will divide the ciliary zone and the pupillary zone is known as collarate. So collarate will distinguish between the ciliary zone and the pupillary zone here, and in between this ciliary zone and pupillary zone there are boundary frills which are known as pupillary frills, which are present in the pupillary area. Now the ciliary zone are having some kind of contraction furrows. Contraction furrows will help in the contractions and dilations of the pupil, and the pupillary zone is having a part here, all the dilator pupillary muscles. So let me make another diagram. This is the sectional diagram, but let me make another diagram where you can understand the muscle action here. So whenever we are drawing this picture of iris, so similarly this area will contain, this area of the posterior segment of the iris will contain the dilator muscle, and this particular area, that anterior segment of the iris, will contain the sphincter muscle, and somewhere there will be an pupillary aperture. So what actually I mean to understand everyone here, the pupillary aperture is connected with the lower portion of the iris, where the posterior part contains the dilator muscle and the anterior part is containing or having the sphincter muscle. So when there will be a dilation, then dilator muscle will act. When there will be a contraction, then sphincter muscle will act. So these two muscles which are present in the iris help in the contraction and dilation of the pupil here. So this is all about our iris. Now let's move to the two broad other names. So we have the second portion of the ciliary body is the uvea, is the ciliary body. So ciliary body is distinguished here. The posterior part of the ciliary body is known as pars plana, as it is plane in nature, and the anterior part of the ciliary body is known as pars plicata. Ciliary body also plays a very important role here because ciliary body is the only part which will help in the production of aqueous humor. Okay, so ciliary body is also having different type of parts or further classification. What are they? First one, ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles. So there are three types of muscles: longitudinal, radial and circular. So these three muscles which are present in the ciliary body help in the function of accommodation. So somewhere in the ciliary body, in the ciliary processes, our lens is attached or connected with the suspensory ligament. These are the suspensory ligaments. So our lens is having an ability to accommodate or relax. That function is controlled by these ciliary muscles. Other than that, the second part is the ciliary stroma. Ciliary stroma consists of collagen fibers which will help in the production of aqueous humor by the sodium potassium channel. And the last one, so the second one is ciliary stroma, and the last one is the ciliary epithelium. So this ciliary epithelium will help in the sodium potassium channel and able to just give a sodium ion, then chlorine ion, then bicarbonate, then ascorbic acid, which all will make a formation of or composition of aqueous humor. So this ciliary body will also help in the accommodation as well as in the production of aqueous humor. The posterior part of the ciliary body will help in the production of aqueous humor, and it is the main site of the aqueous humor production. So these three parts, ciliary muscles, ciliary stroma and epithelium, these three parts are the very important part of the ciliary body. Now the last one of the uveal body. Here we have already discussed about iris and ciliary body. Now the last one of the uvea is choroid. Choroid is the vascular part which is divided into three parts. First of all, the suprachoroidal lamina. The suprachoroidal lamina. This is the first part, which is called lamina fusca. The second part is choroidal stroma or stroma of the choroid, and the third part is the choriocapillaries. So these are the three major parts of the choroid: suprachoroidal lamina, lamina fusca, choroidal stroma or stroma of the choroid, and choriocapillaries. So here, with the help of diagram, we will see the structures. Now the first one is this one is the suprachoroidal lamina. So suprachoroidal lamina or lamina fusca is the first part of the choroid from where the sclera, suppose this is sclera, from where the sclera is having a junction. Now the space in between this suprachoroidal lamina and the sclera is called suprachoroidal space. suprachoroidal space, the space between the sclera and the first layer of choroid, suprachoroidal lamina. Now the second part is our stroma of the choroid. Stroma of the choroid will contain the two types of layers. One is big layer and another one is small layer. So the big layer is known as Haller's layer and the small layer is known as Sattler's layer. These two layers are the major consist part of the choroid of the stroma, stromal choroid. So here the middle layer of the choroid is the choroidal stroma, which will contain the Haller's layer and the Sattler's layer, where the Haller's layer will contain the large blood vessels and the Sattler's layer will contain the smaller blood vessels here. After that, we have third layer which is present just above the choroidal stroma is choriocapillaries. Choriocapillaries are consist of a complex of blood vessels networks which will having a supply of blood vessels to the retina. Choriocapillaries. So there are small capillaries, small structures of the blood vessels which are called capillaries in the choroidal area. So this area having a major function to provide a supply of blood to the retina. Now, one thing which is very important to understand here, that after the choriocapillaries, this is sclera, this is choroid, and what after the choroid? Retina. So for example, if retina is present here and which will have a supply of blood from the choroid, so what is very important to understand here, that the choriocapillaries are divided or separated by one very important layer from the retina is called Bruch's membrane. So this area is known as Bruch's membrane. So Bruch's membrane is the only layer which will separate the retina from the choroid, and this particular Bruch's membrane is also known as blood retinal barrier. So there should be a retinal barrier with the blood. So this blood retinal barrier is possessing by this Bruch's membrane. So Bruch's membrane will separate the retina from the choroid. So this is the particular macroscopic structure of the choroid, where we have a sclera. After that, there will be a separation between the sclera and the choroid by the help of suprachoroidal space. Then the first layer of the choroid is suprachoroidal lamina, then choroidal stroma, then we have choriocapillaries which will be separated by the Bruch's membrane, and this is the retina. And how the blood supply, particularly the blood supply, will goes up to the retina. That is why choroid is known as the vascular coat, and it is very important to have blood supply for the retinal parts. So this is all about a uveal body. So we have discussed in the uvea, iris, ciliary body and choroid. Thank you.